Happy fall migration, everybody. Thanks for being here for our August Lunch and Learn. I'm Julie Brown. I'm the Raptor Migration and Programs Director at the Hawk Migration Association, and I am facilitating things today with Kat Lauer. She's our Engagement and Communications Coordinator. And we are very excited to welcome Kurt Hundgen. He's the Senior Director of Avian Care and Conservation Programs at the National Aviary, who's going to be speaking about Andean condors. And this is a species that we've yet to feature in our Lunch and Learn over the years. So I'm excited to hear about it. And before we get started, I'll mention a bit about HMA if you're new to our organization. We are a nonprofit with a working board, and we provide support to the raptor migration monitoring network across the Americas. So there's just about 200 Hawkwatch sites throughout North, Central, and South America that monitor migration during the spring and fall seasons. And they report those data to our database, hawkcount.org. We provide a lot of resources to the monitoring network, our protocol, data support, annual grants, for Hawkwatch sites and various raptor research efforts. And we have a lot of educational resources like Hawk ID materials for the public. And we are an active partner of the Raptor Population Index, which is a program that produces conservation assessments and population trend analyses using all the long-term data sets. So you can learn more about us at hawkmigration.org. And we are recording as usual today. We're live streaming on our Facebook page. You can always view our Lunch and Learn recordings afterwards on our website. You can go to our homepage or the Events and Tours tab. And we're muting everybody. We've shut off video just to avoid distraction, but we always love to connect with all of you. So Kat will be monitoring the chat window. We encourage you to ask questions or comments for Kurt, and Kat will read them to him at the end of the event. And if you don't already receive our e-newsletter, you can add your name in the chat, and I'm happy to add you there. And I will turn things over to Kat to introduce Kurt.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, everybody. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Kurt Hundgen. Kurt has been with the National Aviary in Pennsylvania since 2013. He currently serves as the Senior Director of Avian Care and Conservation Programs. He oversees all animal care standards, as well as nearly a dozen active conservation programs, both locally in Pennsylvania and globally. This includes leading key conservation programs for Andean condors in Ecuador, which he will speak to us about today, but also Guam kingfishers in Guam and African penguins in Namibia. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Kurt, please begin when you're ready.
All right, thanks, Kat, and thanks for having me on your Lunch and Learn today. As Kat mentioned, I'm going to be talking today about our Andean Condor Conservation Program that we have down in Ecuador. Okay, how come I cannot forward this?
Is it not forwarding for you?
It's not forwarding for me, Julie.
Okay. Do you have any tips, Christina?
Can you forward, Christina?
Yeah, give me 1 second here. I'll go ahead and do that for you.
Christina is Kurt's colleague, and they're kind of sharing a screen together. There we go.
Okay. All right, a little background on the condor. The Andean condor is found in 7 countries down in South America. In Ecuador, it is considered critically endangered. Last estimate was done in 2018, and they had a population estimate of 150 condors. The officials feel as if that level is staying pretty stable at the moment, but it is considered critically endangered in Ecuador. Next. All right, as far as the habitat, this is a little video. This is the Antisenia Preserve, which is in central Ecuador. You'll see typical Andean condor habitat is high elevation and high Andean plateau areas. One thing I want to point out here is you see these roost spots on the rock cliffs. That's one of the primarily ways that the Ecuadorians actually census the birds. They'll use drones for the most part and run them up and down these vast areas. As you can imagine, the area is vast. Next. Okay. All right, now if you ever go to Ecuador, one of the things you'll know is that the Andean condor is absolutely ingrained in their culture, in their religious beliefs. Throughout the country, especially in rural areas, you will see statues, hotels, restaurants. The condor is on their national flag. It's on their national currency. And it's also the national bird of Ecuador. So it's very much ingrained in the culture of Ecuador. Next. And that's part of the biggest problem that the condor has is from human persecution. You know, despite how popular it is in the culture and in religious, it's actually, for the most part, by the rural communities, it's still considered a predator. So you have in these high mountain areas, you have a lot of agriculture. And what happens is, you know, these ranchers, these various groups of endemic people will see a scene like this, and they actually believe that the condor, you know, predated on their particular cow, their goat, you know, their sheep. So the condor is viewed as a predator versus a scavenger. And that's the big conservation issue for the species right now in Ecuador. This view, you can go to next, leads to it being persecuted mostly through poisoning, but there's also birds have been shot. Now, since the last estimate in 2018, the Ecuadorians know of at least 10 condors that were poisoned. And that's kind of an unfortunate situation. The one thing that you will see with these instances is that the condor is protected by law, obviously, but each of these instances does get investigated by the local police, and it is considered a crime and punishable by prison if the investigation proves fruitful. Okay, next. Yeah, so this is a actually investigation site, and this particular condor was poisoned. The skeleton was found, and it was researched thoroughly, and actually had a conviction on this particular one. Now, for the most part, you know, the Ecuadorians feel as if they are making some progress in educating the rural communities with the true role of the condors in terms of them being scavengers. But the other issue that's starting to develop there is the problem they're having with feral dogs. Okay, in Ecuador today, they estimate there is 300,000 feral dogs. The NGO that I work with down there is the Andean Condor Foundation, and they have started to do research on this. And what they have actually found is they can track, they have actually some dogs that will travel up to 20 kilometers. At night, they go up to these high mountain pastures where where the cattle are, and they actually predate on the cattle. So this has brought in a new kind of a new chapter for the condors, because although the Andean Condor Foundation feels as if they're making progress with educating the public on the scavenger role that condors play, what these ranchers are now doing is that they're now poisoning the dogs, these feral dogs. So the poison is still out there in habitat. So it's almost 2 steps forward and 1 step back for the Ecuadorians. The other new threat that the condors face down there is the windmill industry. 3 years ago, the government installed the first windmill project in the southern part of the country. They put up 12 windmill structures right in the middle of condor breeding habitat. And you can go to the next. One of the things that is fortunate about this project is that the power company actually hired the Andean Condor Foundation to do monitoring of the site. And fortunately, they have reported in the past 3 years that there have been no condor collisions with these windmills. But this is a picture that was taken back in November when I was down there. And right behind us is the windmills. And right in front of us, we were watching actually a breeding pair of condors at the nest cave with the chick. So you can see how close these windmills are. And, the government does have plans for additional windmill projects. So this is a new threat for the condors that the Andean Condor Foundation is watching very carefully. All right, the good news. Down in Ecuador, I work with the Andean Condor Foundation. This is a really dedicated group of people. When I first went down there in 2017, they had a staff of 5. Today, they have a staff of roughly 22 people, and they are dedicated to the conservation of the Andean condor. Next. On their staff, they actually have 3 full-time condor biologists that are monitoring the birds throughout the country. A big part of their activities is education, specifically in rural areas. As I mentioned, there is still a common belief that the Andean condor is this big bird predator. So their education programming is pretty extensive and it's ongoing. This particular slide was taken last summer, and it's basically an introduction letting the rural community people know about our upcoming telemetry project in the region. One thing that I really like about the Andean Condor Foundation is that they understand the belief, how the condor is viewed in the rural communities by the older generations. So what their belief is focusing on school groups. They believe that the younger generation, they can change that perception, and they do an awful lot of education programming specifically with school groups in these rural areas. The other thing the condors have going for them is ecotourism. The ecotourism trade is pretty well developed there. Quito is the capital, and approximately an hour south is the Antisenia Range, which currently has the greatest concentration of condors in Ecuador. So these ecotourist groups, they have about an hour bus ride up to the preserve, and you can readily see condors. One of the other positive things with condors in Ecuador is they are breeding. If you look at the picture in the bottom, there you'll see 3 or 4 juvenile birds. So there is ecotourism is developing, is growing, and the birds are breeding. The other good thing, especially in the Antiscinear range, is 8 years ago they have eliminated big game hunting, deer hunting, and these populations have increased over that time span. So the condors have a lot more access to natural prey items, which will reduce the conflicts with the ranchers and the domestic livestock. The other interesting thing that the foundation has started back in 2022 is they actually started a vasectomy program for the feral dogs. What they did was they partnered with the vet school in Quito, and about 8 to 10 days a year, what they do is they go out to these rural communities and they'll set up 8 to 10 tables and they'll do mass vasectomies on a lot of these village dogs. And I said, like I said, for the past 3 years, since 2022, they've done about 2,000 dogs a year. Feral dog, not all feral, but mostly a lot of the village dogs, in an attempt to kind of control the feral dog populations. All right, now I'd like to talk about National Aviary, our interest in there, how we got started working down there. Back in 2017, we actually breed the Andean condor at the National Aviary, and I was invited to go down to Ecuador and to start working with 6 zoos that were trying to manage and breed the species. And those 6 zoos are throughout the country. And one of the first things I noticed, next slide, Christina, is all 6 zoos had aviaries that were enormous, to manage their condors. And when you're talking about breeding condors, space is very, very important. So I was really impressed with the setups that these zoos had. And over the years, I've gotten involved with them. Next. And one of the interesting things is that 3 of the facilities actually have wild condors that will come in and perch on the aviaries for the condors that are at these facilities. So I found that to be really, really interesting. Now, since 2017, what I've done is I've worked with them and I've provided the zoos with some tools that we use here in North America to manage our Andean condor captive population. And the first thing we did was we set up a stud book, okay? Basically, the Ecuadorians, they were just holding condors. They weren't managing them at all. So one of the first things we did was set up a stud book. They're actually on their 4th volume of the stud book now. So, and a stud book is kind of a basis for being able to manage a population in human care. And once we had the stud book established, the next thing we did was we actually transferred a whole bunch of birds among the 6 facilities. Okay, when I got there in 2017, there were 18 condors at the 6 facilities, and there was no pair bonded birds or breedings. And over the next 2 years, what we did was we repaired 14 of the birds. And actually they've had some success since then. But the other things that we looked at was the actual habitat setups. Next, Christina. And again, this is just basic stuff. They didn't necessarily have the proper nesting areas for condors. A lot of the condors, one thing, although the exhibits were huge, okay, most of it was all ground space. Condors like height. So some of the facilities added these platforms. They've added proper nesting areas for the condors. And they also started providing them with some enrichment. For the Ecuadorians at the time, they believed the way you take care of a condor is basically put a piece of meat in there every 7 to 10 days, and that was it. You know, we've introduced some different types of enrichment, different types of foods, basically to get a lot more natural behaviors. And I think at the end, where we're at now, is they've had success. Okay, they among the 6 facilities, they now have 7 pairs of condors. You can go to the next, Christina. And they have actually 3 pairs that are breeding. They have 2 pairs that are parent rearing. And for the first time this year at Amaru, they actually did a puppet rear. So the success they're having is really good to see, and their population in human care is growing. The other thing that we've helped them out with a lot is veterinary care. On the right is our veterinarian, Dr. Pilar Fish. She has been down to Ecuador on 2 occasions and given seminars on condors and medicine care. That's a real big niche need for them. And also at the aviary, we've actually brought Amaru and Ecuadorian vets to our facility for a 2-week training course. And that has really helped them out. So that's how we're involved in Ecuador and where we started. Now, as time has gone along, we have wanted to get involved with the wild population as well. And last year we got involved and we started a 3-year telemetry project for the wild population. Now, this is something that the Ecuadorians have done in the past. Okay, since 2012, they have put transmitters on 16 condors. All right, 12 of those have been juveniles, 4 of them been adults. And what they have learned, next, okay, again, yeah, just to reiterate, the transmitters that they put on, the juveniles that they have caught in the cage before they have fledged in the nesting caves, and the 4 adults that they have done were birds that were rescued, rehabbed, and re-released. So since 2012, like I said, they've had transmitters on 16 condors. And what that has shown is the following information. 73% of the time, condors are inhabiting non-protected areas. 77% of the time, condors are foraging in non-protected areas. 70% of the time, they're roosting in non-protected areas. And 94% of the time, they're nesting in non-protected areas. So this is really valuable information for them to know, to start putting in, to develop a countrywide conservation plan. But one of the things that's missing is information from the South, okay? This is where the radio transmitters have been since 2018. So in order to complete the full picture for a conservation plan for Ecuador, they needed information on birds in the South. And that's what our telemetry program has been designed to do. We wanted to put transmitters on condors in the South. So last fall, we got several grants and we had enough funding to purchase 6 transmitters. And I went down to Ecuador in November and teamed up with the Andean Condor Foundation for 9 days. And we had 6 transmitters to put out. In this picture, we have the condor biologists, we have 2 vets, and some technicians as well. So there was nine of us all together. Now, one of the first things that came to my mind was, well, how do you go about securing a wild condor? How are you going to catch them? Now, in the past, if you look at the California Condor program, they're able to walk their condors into large howdies with shift doors, and once they go in, they can shut them. Well, for years, the Ecuadorians have tried to do that with Andean condors, and they've not been successful. And like I said, all their prior condors that have been transmitted were either secured at the nest cave as juvenile before fledgling, or adults that were rescued for rehab. So the idea was to try a cannon net for capture. Okay. So we got down there first day. We spent the whole day setting up our cannon net. We were all very excited. A lot of potential. We actually saw condors in the area. But one of the things you noticed on the right side, the cannon net that we used was powered by pressure, air pressure. Okay, so we actually shot the cannon a couple times during the day. It worked fine. We left the site ready to go early in the morning. But one of the things that happened was the temperature. We're up 13,000 feet here, 14,000 feet. And naturally, the weather got cold. The air in the tank compressed, and we lost all pressure to shoot the cannon net. So, whenever you do field projects like this, things, if something go wrong, it generally goes wrong in the beginning. The other obstacle we were faced with trying to trap the condors is that 2 days after we were there, the park rangers came up to us and said, "Hey, we have 2 dead horses out there, 5 kilometers away." We were using a calf, to bait the condors in. And, when there are 500-pound horses out there, where the condors are going to go to feed. So that was a little bit of a distraction as well. And the third thing that was happening at the time, right before I got there, there was an outbreak of forest fires. And in a very short period of time, throughout Ecuador, they have had the worst forest fires in over 60 years. And one of the interesting things that I experienced is that they really didn't know what to do. There was just so many fires. But nonetheless, it did impede our trapping because the atmosphere, was not the best. But in true fashion, okay, the Ecuadorians came up with another design to try and trap the condors, and it was a basically leg loop. We went down the village and we got some very soft nylon twine, rope type material. And if you look on the left-hand side, you can actually see it's a straight string right in the middle. It's a black string. And then what we did was we tied off leg snares off this, and we put it around the rear end of the calf. One of the things that I learned out there is that condors will always approach a carcass from the rear end. They'll never start feeding on a carcass on the stomach or the head. They always approach from the rear. So we set up a couple of trap lines at the rear portion of the carcass. And on the 5th day, we caught our first condor. It was a juvenile female, young female, 2-year-old female. And it was a lot of excitement for us. It was a lot of excitement. Now, one of the things that immediately happened is the Ecuadorians and the vets went into work mode. They took all kinds of measurements: bill measurements, blood samples, feather samples, skin samples, throat cultures, vent checks, and for the most part, the bird was in excellent shape. Now, the last things that we did was we wing tagged him. We wing tagged the bird, and we put on our first satellite transmitter. The transmitters we used were the EOBSs. They're a German product, and the Argentinians used them last year, and the Ecuadorians were using them on the king vultures earlier in the year. So that's the transmitter we decided to use for the project, and for the most part, very lightweight, and they went on relatively easy. All told, we had the bird in hand for 42 minutes. And considering all the stuff we did, I thought it went very, very well. And here is through these. By the way, this bird was named Ava after the aviary. And here is the release. So now, unfortunately, Ava's transmitter stopped working about 4 weeks after we released her. So that's been unfortunate. But since the fall, okay, the Ecuadorians have been able to attach transmitters on 2 additional condors. All right. And on the left is Tamura. This was, again, a juvenile female that was secured at the nest location. And on the right is Valentino. Valentino was rescued in February from a gunshot wound. He was brought to the Omaru facility, successfully rehabbed, and both birds had transmitters put on and were subsequently released. In the case of Valentino, this is what was a really opportunistic opportunity for the program, is that he was actually rescued down south. So he was released in June, and he is transmitting, but this is the first condor that the program has had so far south in Ecuador. So that has been a real plus for the program. And I think the other thing too is with the Ecuadorians and how they do things. They made Valentino a national story. He's almost a national icon now down there. Once they were able to do the actual release with the telemetry, they had about 150 people at the release site, including the head of the Department of Ministry, Natural Resource Ministry. So marketing-wise and awareness-wise, the Andean Condor Foundation, they do a fantastic job with creating awareness about condor conservation in Ecuador. And here is what the transmitters for Tamia and Valentino are showing so far. Like I say, if you look on the left, that's, Tamia. She was, captured at the nest cave. So she has just recently fledged, and her distribution is roughly 5 kilometers. For the next 2 years, she's probably not going to be moving that far in terms of distribution. But on the right side is Valentino. And he is probably, right now, he's really moving around. He's probably got a range of about 100 kilometers. And that's a little bit bigger range than what they're seeing for the condors up north so far. But again, this is just preliminary data, first couple of months. Tamio was done in February, and Valentino was released in June. So it's in the early stages. And we have 3 more transmitters to get out there. So I think in closing, I think condor conservation in Ecuador is kind of on the fence, but I think you're seeing 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And I think the people down there, the Ecuadorians are committed to the conservation program, and I see good things in the future for the species in Ecuador. And I would want to thank everybody for allowing this presentation. And if you would like to support, our condor work down in Ecuador, you can contact us at aviary.org. So, and thank you very much. So if there are any questions, we can take them now.
Go ahead, Chat or Kat. You can jump in if we have questions. Thanks so much, Kurt.
Thanks. Sorry about that. I was having
yeah.
trouble unmuting myself. Sorry about that, everybody. There was some setting that was on. So people are putting questions in the chat right now. I'm going to ask a few questions from Julie and I first. Julie wants to know, you mentioned that Ecuadorian, oh, sorry. Sorry. You mentioned that the Andean condors live in 7 different countries in South America. What is the
Correct.
northernmost range of their population?
They are up through, you'll find them in Venezuela, Colombia, down into Ecuador, Peru. Actually, they believe that there is a northern population. I forgot to mention this, is that there's a northern population, and they've actually done genetics to the southern population, which is down in Bolivia, Argentina, and Chile.
Wow. So a huge range that
Huge,
they're,
huge.
yeah.
Right. And they've done genetics. The Argentinians and the Ecuadorians have done genetics, and they believe they have 2 subpopulations of condors there.
Wow. My question for you is, I think it's so interesting that they're doing so much work with the captive populations. I'm wondering, are there any plans to eventually release those captively bred birds into the wild populations in Ecuador?
Yes, their intentions, I think they do have good intentions, but I also think that the Ecuadorians, they want to get the situation, they want the wild situation to be a lot better before they release captive birds. They want, this whole incidental persecution and poisoning, it's a real issue for them. So, I think that they want to feel more confident with what's going on with the wild population before they use captive raised birds. But they're up to now, in the past 4 years, they're up to 7 offspring, 7 fledged condors. So, moving forward, they would be in a position to release some of them each year.
Wow. Thank you. So Audrey in the chat would like to know, how long do the transmitters accumulate data?
3 years. The
Wow.
life expectancy on these transmitters is 3 years.
And similarly,
it was, we were kind of really disappointed with what happened with the first transmitter, because these transmitters, they were highly recommended by the Argentinians. And earlier in the year, the Ecuadorians put them on 6 king vultures, and they were very, very satisfied with the results that they were getting. So very lightweight.
And similarly, in line with that question, Irene wants to know, how much do the transmitters cost?
They were approximately $2,200 a piece.
Wow. So it's a lot to lose when one stops working on the bird too. Christina would like to know, are populations of the Andean condor in other South American countries endangered?
Yes, actually, I believe the rough estimate is about 7,000 condors in the countries. The countries with the most are Argentina, Chile, and Bolivia. They believe they have, I think, around 2,000 condors in each of those countries. Peru, again, the estimates are so-so, but they believe they have around 300. Ecuador, again, they had a pretty good estimate of 150 back in 2018. Venezuela, they believe it, and in Colombia, there are less than 100 birds. The Venezuelans, they don't believe they have many at all. And Colombia estimates their population at around 70, 75 birds.
Oh, wow.
So it's, one of the interesting things too with this Andino Condor Foundation is that they've also, they are growing. They now have an office in the south of Ecuador. And they've also opened up an office in northern Peru. So they're going to be they want to look at, our condors moving back and forth in northern Peru and southern Ecuador. So again, I think the one thing that impresses me with all across all the countries that there's some good research going on in some of these countries. They know a lot about their condors.
Amazing. Yeah. Christina would like to know, are any of the condors migratory?
No, they don't. I mean, they have huge ranges, but in terms of migration, they don't believe that they are migratory.
Okay.
And
And
they can
then,
go about 100, 100 kilometers a day.
oh,
But they have
wow.
huge ranges.
Yvonne, and I'm going to try to get this right, but she's asking a question about, I think, disease in the population. She says, is there testing for H5N1 antibodies in the captive and wild population? And is there testing for HPAI?
I don't know the answer to that, honestly. I know, with the one condor that we secured, blood samples were taken. What tests are done on that? They are looking at genetics. I know that they do genetics. But in terms of, the bird flu, I don't know what monitoring they're doing with that.
Okay, that makes sense. Petra says, thank you so much for the presentation. And her question is, do condors mate for life?
They do. From what we know, they do.
And my question in line with that is, are they similar to the California condors where they live a long time and they take a long time before they start breeding? And is that kind of an issue with their conservation?
Sure. There are species that, they reach sexual maturity at probably 6 to 7 years. They don't necessarily, if they are successful, they don't necessarily breed every year. That chick will stay with them 12 to 18 months. So they have a low, reproduction potential, and it takes, 6 to 8 years for them to reach sexual maturity. The good thing is that they will live an extensive period of time. I mean, condors in human care, it's not unusual for 50, 60 years, but that's in human care. So they do have a long lifespan.
Yeah. So it's about keeping them alive and hoping that they breed successfully. Petra also wonders, and I don't know if you know about this, but how the California condor population is doing.
The California condor population, I think, is doing very well. I think they got hit pretty hard with the bird virus last year. But the last I heard, they were over 400 birds now in the wild. And I know that the reintroductions are going really well. I think the birds are now in parts of Utah, and they've never been reintroduced in Utah. And so I think they're doing as well as can be expected. So I think that's going real well.
That's great. And then we have a question from Domenica, and I believe earlier she said that she is from Ecuador. She's living in Canada right now, but she wants to know, are you planning on having any other conservation tools for condors that are outside of the nesting or breeding areas?
That's up to, yeah, that's part of the plan that the Andino Condor Foundation, I think, is trying to develop. You know, they're looking at developing a countrywide conservation plan, and for the most part, I would think that it would include a lot of education awareness outside the non-protected areas.
That's great. And then just one last comment in the chat right now from Christina, who says she was lucky enough to see a condori in Patagonia. She says it was thrilling, and thank you so much for this work, and keep it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's really spectacular to see. They're really spectacular birds to see in the wild, soaring, you know, especially up in the high Andes. It doesn't get any better. You know,
Yeah,
it's really
I would agree with Christina. I would love to see one one day. Thank you so much, Kurt. Again, I'm going to hand it back over to Julie.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you again, Kurt, so much for your help, for your work doing this important research, and just for taking the time today to share it with us. We really appreciate it. And I'm glad to hear that the Andino Condor organization is growing, and that it sounds like there's a lot of great support for the species. So we're grateful. It's good to hear.
Yeah, they're extremely dedicated group of folks, you know, that do a phenomenal amount of work with, you know, minimal resources. They really are a dedicated group of individuals, and it's a pleasure to work with them and support them. You know, I mean, that's the best thing that we can do.
Yeah, so important.
So, but thank you for having me. I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. It was great. I learned a lot about them. For next month, on September 17th, we're kind of shifting to a more northern species, but we're going to be hearing from Jessie Wilson. She's a master's student at Boise State, and she's going to be talking about her goshawk research in Utah and Idaho. So you can join us for that. I'll be creating a registration link for that in the next couple days. And lastly, if you are not an HMA member, we encourage you to join our kettle. It's a great way to support raptors and to support the Raptor Monitoring Network and all the great work they do every year to monitor these birds. And your membership helps us maintain hawk count, which is really central to HMA, and it helps us offer programs like Lunch and Learn and produce our journal. And everything. We have a great hawk count fundraiser happening for the month of September. It's a great way to show your support as well. And we thank everybody for being here. Thank you also to Christina from the Aviary, who was our tech support. We appreciate your help. And we hope to see everybody again next month. Thanks all. Have a good day.